and then these 4 warm-up games that could really have a significant impact on on who gets in the squad and who gets in the team.
Yeah. Like, have you?
Sorry, excuse me, guys.
Sorry, it's possible to skip down. Thanks.
That's very good.
Joe presents Baz and Andrew's House of Rugby, together with Guinness.
So yeah, just to start off here, we're in Energia Park with Shane Horgan, and want to take you all the way back to the late 90s. Actually, no, we'll go back before that. And
I mightn't remember.
Just your journey here, because your dad's a Kiwi, isn't he? Like, or you guys lived in New Zealand for a while, didn't you?
No, we didn't. No. So Dad is a Kiwi, but lived in. My mum and dad and my sisters lived in London for a while. That's where my mum and dad met. But no, I was born in Drogheda.
Okay, yeah.
And then played all my rugby growing up in Drogheda. My dad coached me for a bit as well.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I suppose when we were younger, the house was split between Ireland and New Zealand. But then when your son starts playing for Ireland, he transferred his allegiance is over. So, yeah, there was no split, and I think it remains with Ireland now.
And what's your dad's name?
John.
And is he? Because we were chatting to Joey Carberry there for something around 3 or 4 weeks back, and his dad was a coach as well and coached him for a while, and he said his dad would still be the guy he'd call after every game. And
oh yeah, sure. My dad was
same thing.
Oh, 100%. My number one sounding board and advisor and coach, and he would have watched as much rugby as anyone, so he was very aware of it. And also when he was sort of coming over first in sort of 1980s, he was and coaching me in the 80s and I think probably early 90s. He was come from a background in New Zealand that would be very different from Ireland. So, it was great to have the New Zealander as the coach of the kids, but all the way through, he's sort of confidant and advisor, and I think I don't think that's unusual necessarily with sons and their fathers in rugby. It can be really helpful, and I think when you have a New Zealand father like Joey, I think there's no other option.
And was your dad, like, did he play a bit? Was he handy enough back in the day as well? Did you ever get to even see him?
No, I didn't know. He tells me he's handy enough, all right. But he didn't. He only played as a schoolboy as well, so he didn't. He left New Zealand quite young, so he didn't play anything other than school.
Because I was thinking, I remember growing up playing football, and you'd have on summers lads from Brazil, and they'd show up for trials for your team, and they would immediately get a starting spot ahead of you just because they're from Brazil. And
I know. Well, listen, that wasn't the dad, but there was a lot of New Zealanders in Ireland doing that for a lot of years, all right, wasn't there? Yeah, in every definitely New Zealand. If you had a New Zealand accent, you were in. But,
And then for yourself, what is it? I was looking back there. Your debut was in '98 against Clonethley then as well. And how did that all come? Like, were you in the Leinster system on the way up, or?
I was. I was in the youth system, which is the parallel system to the schools around the clubs. I played for 2 clubs in Drogheda, which were Delvin and Drogheda were the 2 Drogheda clubs, and then they combined later and became Boyne. And Boyne now, are the team that exists. They're the one team in Drogheda. So. I didn't play in school because my school was a Gaelic playing school. So I then started playing for I think around 16, playing for the Leinster youths, and then played for the Irish youths that year. And then I had another year in youth rugby, and then Jim Glennon, who was the manager of Leinster at the time. I think they kind of heard about me on the grapevine, and I came in. It was Mike Ruddock's first year in Leinster, and here we are in Energia Park. We used to be out the back there, and I remember my first training session coming in. We trained where we are, and I changed where we trained here. I was like, I suppose I was 18 maybe, and all these guys that I'd seen not so much from Leinster, because Leinster wasn't so big then. It was about Ireland, so guys like Kurt McQuilkin and Neil Francis. And Dennis Hickey and these guys, and been very, very intimidated, and being feeling very much out of my depth, which I was. And we trained that summer out the back, and I was pretty fit. I wasn't very big. I was built like a 1 iron, but I was fit, so I could do the running bit of things. But and that was it. Yeah, Mike Ruddock was great. Mike Ruddock then gave me a chance. Played an A game that year, and. that's where I kicked on from. That was the start of it all. But so kind of good memories in that it started here, but also absolutely being destroyed. Looking for a lung somewhere out the back there, and having like a fully grown man running into me at full speed wasn't ideal.
Well, yeah, because what was it? Because like, was there still a few guys in Leinster set up at that time that had jobs? Like, were they still? Was there a mix?
Everybody had a job. There was. Sorry, I don't know. That may be wrong. I think there was 4 full-time professionals contracts, but everybody else had a job. So training was all in the evening.
Yeah.
And then I think the next year was the first year that it was. I think the majority of people were on sort of, some sort of full-time contract. That was a big change.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was training at night, and there wasn't many games either. You had the Interpro series, a couple of games in Europe, and that was it. So it was it was just really at the starting point of professional rugby, which was really nice place to be. And this kind of extraordinary growth that took place over the arc of my career.
Yeah.
Where my first game for Leinster against Munster was down in Doverdoyle in front of 300 people.
Yeah,
like 300 people. And then it was like 10 years later, we played Munster in the semi-final of Europe in Croke Park. And there was 85,000 people there. So that's how things had changed over that time, and Leinster and Munster and Ulster kind of changed from being the provincial team to actually being the club team. Really, so for the majority of my life, Leinster was my club.
Yeah, and I actually remember that. I remember going as a fan to that in 2009, and the big thing for Leinster fans was you had to wear blue because no one wanted to get embarrassed after the other semi at the Aviva.
Yeah. Well, listen, no one was more embarrassed than us after the first of the players. But I do remember that it was meant to be our home semi-final, and it was just red. I remember that. Then I did think about next time out, the 2009 that. I was kind of half expecting that, but no, you delivered. Well done. You got everyone to wear blue. I think we outnumbered them.
Yeah, and there was talk about this at the end of the season. It's like, you actually could possibly in the Pro 14 season count your points from these Interpro games and still have the Interpro Cup come back as a little extra edge of competition. Like, like the Scots will do it with Edinburgh. They'll compete for the 1872 Cup. And do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I actually do think that's. It was something I suggested that they look into, because it actually, I don't know. There's some. I don't know. Maybe if you run the Pro 14, they think maybe it detracts or something like that, and there's maybe the sponsorship issue. I don't know, but I always thought it'd be quite nice, and because. Almost something like the rivalry shield that they had in New Zealand, where if you have it, you hold it, and that continues on for the the Interpro games. I think it'd be quite listen, those Interpro games rarely need more spice, but it might be quite nice. I thought about that as well.
Yeah. And then I suppose you would start it off, and you were centre at the start, wasn't that it? And then moved over to wing after a while, or was it? Did you crisscross a good bit at the start?
No, at the most I started out outside centre. And then a guy called Brian O'Driscoll came along and made things a little bit more tricky. So I thought, I'd give it a go at 12. Yeah. And then I played 12 for a very long time. And the only time my first game as a wing, I think, first senior game as a wing was my first game for Ireland.
Wow, really? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a couple of years where I continued to play centre for Leinster and played wing for Ireland, and then eventually they kicked me out to the wing. Yeah,
I remember. I think it's the tradition is still going of singing a song in front of the lads, and I don't know if the drinking tradition is still going where everybody buys you a drink after your debut. But can you remember back to yours?
Well, I think the problem with that is the Six Nations used to be over a lot, much more extended period. So there would always be 2 weeks before a game. Now there could be more. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but so. If you have a turnaround now, it could be a 6-day turnaround. It's going to be a 7-day between the first and second games. There's not, so you can't really. Not that you should be doing it anyway, but you certainly can't do it now. But I think they normally go, listen, we'll have a blowout at the final game. But that used to be the case. Yeah, I was kind of lucky though, because I was 4 of the first caps in my first cap. So there was John Hayes, Simon Easterby, Peter Stringer, and Ronan.
Yeah.
And so we all got capped at the same time, so there wasn't quite the focus on us using individual, but I do remember we bought a lot of drinks, all right.
I was looking back, I remember at the time when we spoke a few years ago, and I was doing this book, and I ended up looking back, and there's a great photo of you with your family in Edinburgh, in Murrayfield, after you won the the Heineken Cup. Like, how much of a relief was you know, to finish up, you know, before you finished with Leinster to get there?
Oh, that was unbelievable. That was, you know, I still don't know if, well, I know that you know, I wouldn't have been happy, you know, if that hadn't happened, you know, with your career. Certainly I would have felt unfulfilled. So that was a really poignant moment, because, you know, your family are, you know, the ones you have to put up with your nonsense the whole way through, and being disappointed and being upset and being irrational, you know, and certainly when you're training really hard as well, and especially, you know, your training sort of changed a lot, and how you live your life changed a lot in the latter part of my career. So you're kind of totally invested in it. So, you know, you're eating much more healthy. You're not doing anything really outside rugby, and you know, your training is really strict. You know, you're not always the nicest person when you're you know, you're half starving yourself, or, you know, starving yourself any night. So you know, they've been put up with that, and they also know how impactful it was in your life. And you're trying to do something your whole career, and I think that was probably, what year? That was 2009. So that was 10 years of doing something and really failing. So, you know, you don't really want to spend your whole, listen, there were successes along the way at different levels, but, you know, in that core thing of trying to win a Heineken Cup, that failed throughout my career. So nobody wants to be doing something that they're failing at every year. So that became really, really important, and as you said there, it was relief more than anything else.
And there was a period, like, when Ireland started really to kind of win the likes of Triple Crowns before they got to the Grand Slam that same year as well, but where you guys really had like a hoodoo over England at the time. Was England always like the biggest game for you guys, and especially when they were world champions around that time, and those games in Twickenham? Yeah,
well, sort of naturally it is. You know, I don't think, you know, from a, you know, there's the old enemy, but it wasn't really so much that. Listen, there is an element of that, because it's how, you know, the supporters, you know, how they engage with it. But more the fact that was a brilliant England team. It was a really, really good England team, and it was one of those teams that you thought, well, if we don't perform well, we'll get really embarrassed. And that was always sort of hanging over you when you were playing. They were world champions, you know, and actually, you know, the year they won the World Cup was probably, they were right at the end of their cycle. They were probably a little bit better the year before that. So they were no nonsense, that team, you know. And they gave us a couple of hidings as well. But you know, we did, like, I think during that period we probably had a bit of a hex on them. There was,
out of the two memorable tries you have against England, the one in Twickenham, the reach for the corner, and then the other one, the high ball in Croke Park of all places. Is there a favourite, or, you know, is there one that stands out?
No, it's like trying to choose between two of your children, you know. But no, I love them both. You know, I love them both. I'm very lucky that, you know, you're on the end of something like that, and they, you know, proper memories. I think maybe Twickenham, just because it's the last minute nature of it. You know, the Croke Park, the aesthetic looked brilliant, and the fact that, you know, it was kind of, the game itself was really significant. But like, that game was, you know, it wasn't quite won, but it wasn't far off. But the one against England in Twickenham, it felt like hope was almost extinguished. So and kind of, you know, last minute try against England is kind of, you probably be thinking about that when you were younger.
I was looking back at just, you know, the amount of games you played for Ireland, and looking back to see what World Cup warm-up games you played, and I actually just saw that 2003 and 2007, I don't think you played any warm-up games. Were you injured, or what?
I very nearly didn't go to the two World Cups that I went to. So I got injured against Scotland in 2003 in the opening game of the Six Nations. I tore my quad really badly, and then I never got back, and I kept on tearing it just in training.
Really?
I was ready to play the warm-up game against Wales, and I tore it again in the back pitch in Lansdowne, and I had about 5 weeks to get it ready. I just went into really intensive rehabilitation and just got back just in time. Literally just got back. My first game back was the first game of the 2003 World Cup for Ireland, which was against Romania. That was my first game in 9 months.
Wow.
So, and then similarly, in 2007, I got injured. There was a warm-up game against Scotland, and I was the 23rd man. And we were just throwing a ball out the back line, and I popped my my knee. One of the ligaments in my knee, And I thought I was definitely gone.
Yeah.
But I got back. I think I had again maybe 4 weeks to get back.
Yeah.
So I missed the opening game of that World Cup and got back in for the second and played the rest. But my career might have been more healthy if I missed the entire.
You would have went up. If you had missed it.
An all-time great.
There's a thing, like back because recently it's kind of it's Conor Murray and Dan Levy are the two that stand out now, or even Sexton was talking about he'd love not to give as much information away about injuries as has been given out. But back then for you, has there ever been a time where you were injured and it was something do you have to kind of mask it, or would you prefer that's kind of not known?
Everyone masks injuries the whole time.
Yeah.
Of course, and it's almost to yourself, because you think you want to get back earlier. To your coach, maybe even to the doctor a bit, doesn't feel, as bad. Or I think there's always, players always think that if I can get out in the pitch, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And there's some truth in that. I've sort of followed this thing with Conor about not saying what the injury is, and I can understand from one, I suppose, personal health perspective, and your privacy, and personal. Integrity of your own health records, but I think you have to forego a little bit of that when you're a professional athlete, and that's part of the deal. But it does have other consequences that giving the opposition team information on you. And also maybe compromise you for future negotiations with the contract. But so I think I think. Players have to, supply some level of detail, because supporters want to know, press wants to know. I think you have to, you don't have to go into minute detail, but I think you have to say what type of injury, what's expected time on the return. That's fair enough. I don't think you have to go into too much more detail than that, but I think that's fair enough.
Looking, I suppose, then at the World Cup, and we're going to start now in the next few days and weeks with the warm-up games as well, and tight ropes almost you have to get through, but you still want to, there'll be guys, battling for your positions and stuff as well. I suppose looking at the wingers, there's 5 of them in that 44-man squad at the moment. Actually, 6 because Addison is being added into it as well. Do you is that something that you kind of think is going to be tight? Do you think Joe already has his ideas about who's going to go?
I think you probably have, 85% of his team in his head, or squad, certainly. I think there'll be, there's normally a few calls. We probably think some of them are closer than they necessarily are. There's not too many players that Joe doesn't have pretty good experience of or would have seen. There's a lot of players with a lot of game time because of injuries and just because he's used a lot of players over the last couple of years. So he'll have an idea. Everybody's progressing, and maybe some people are regressing as well. And he'll see that. He will also have had. At Six Nations will have maybe changed his opinion on some players or altered it slightly. And then he has this prolonged period with them where he'll see them up close. He'll be asking them to do things, and he'll be challenging them in some ways on whether they deliver on that. And all the players be aware of that. Now, listen, there's a lot of players who know they're going if they stay fit, but not everybody. Within that, there's another subsection that will think, well, I'm almost certainly going to be playing, but that's not that's a small group of players.
Is there guys, I suppose, if you look at the likes of maybe Dave Carney, Mike Haley, Will Addison, they'd probably be looked at like maybe as the outsiders or the lads that are kind of not set in stone. Like, what do you think they would have to do? Like, is it more so what you might see in training than you might see on the pitch that'll get you a spot?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, someone's going to get injured, right? So that's going to happen. And that's not nice, but people are going to get injured. He's not going to pick from a clean slate, and he's still not. We know Levy's gone, O'Brien's gone. That changes. You think very significantly what's going on in the back row. So there'll be some other injuries around the park that'll happen. So some of them will benefit from that. Then there'll be training, and somebody will be, training the house down, and that'll happen. And that's not always enough to get in the squad, but it won't. It'll get someone noticed. And then you've got 4 games, and they won't pick the same team for 4 games. And some guys might get 40 minutes of an opportunity. And that's what you might get. And if you get 40 minutes, you might get another 40 minutes. But if you don't play well in that 40, you mightn't get any more. So that's how necessary it is to take your opportunities. And again, I think there will be, there'll be a lot of it will already be in his head. So it'll take it'll take significant improvement for someone to alter it. But I think more interestingly, it's not so much someone coming from nowhere to get into the squad or team. He'll be looking for more, I think, players who are in the squad or he's had, given game time and are kind of younger. He'll want to see them. How do they step up and become really important key members of the team? And that'll be the other thing he'll be looking for. Yes, who's in the squad, but actually who can I rely on to deliver a big performance in a way that they hadn't been before.
I remember after it was like a bit deflating, of course, for Irish fans and the players at the end of to get beaten so comprehensively by Wales, like when they won the Grand Slam. But I remember chatting to Rob Kearney at the ground after the game, and there was a lot of talk of like, we have to go back to what we know we're good at and stuff. Like, can you see Ireland maybe going back to maybe what they did even the year before, like more of a high balls, chasing high balls, and kind of playing the percentages?
No, I think they need. They're good at lots of things, and I think when they play their best, I think they're less conservative in what they do, and they have a huge interplay between forwards and backs, and when they get a bit stressed or like there's a bit of anxiety, they tend to retreat from that, and I think that's what gets them in trouble. They become a bit basic, and they take they run a channel out into a really heavily defended zone, and I think the problem is that they shouldn't go back to basics. They should actually be looking to move their game on, and that's what they need to do. And they certainly need to do that from a defensive perspective as well, where they're, where they had been, at the top of the class, really, with what from a defensive line perspective, it was like very great integrity of the line, good line speed, got off it, managed the opposition. But if you saw what England and Wales doing in this Six Nations, massive line speed up, close, leave the outside, don't worry about it, back up again, really, really aggressive. And I think they need to look at that and say, not to say they have to mimic necessarily their defensive system, but they have to move their own one on, definitely.
You were here at Energy Park today, and Raj is doing stuff out here today as well, and when he was with Crusaders, I think they won one of the games, or maybe a semi or the final, with 63 kicks in the game out of hand, and he was talking about that this is a big tactic that he thinks is going to come along for the World Cup as well. Can you see something like that? Like, will there be a surprise tactic that someone hits everybody with?
There's generally something that comes up in the World Cup, but I think we've seen sort of the sort of genesis of a couple of things. One, the kicking game is slightly different, so not as predominantly off 10. Move the ball slightly further wide, kick to regather, turn the opposition. Because of that line speed is so fast that that's the way to counter it. So I think we might see that move into the World Cup, and that could be one of the stories. So you see, wings, fullbacks, outside centres kicking a lot more, and then the other one is that defensive system that I think that we've seen, England and Wales move it on a lot in the last while. Other teams have to take note, and if they'll take note in what they're doing defensively, but also take note into how they counteract it with their attacking strategy. So that might be something that we don't know yet, and maybe Joe Schmidt's working away on that, and let's hope so.
Yeah, is there would be, if you're looking at the squad or who you think might go, a couple of players that you're excited to see taking out everybody at a World Cup stage, a couple of Irish players?
Yeah, and listen, I think everybody sort of picks these. Larmour, Larmour is, when he's got a brilliant step. He doesn't lose any pace. His footwork is good. Listen, he's not a complete player yet, but he's got some. He's so much fun to watch. Stepping particularly off his right foot, doesn't lose any pace at all. That's it's something special. I think Joey Carberry. I don't know where we can get him in, but I want to see him play because he excites me every time he gets the ball. Broken field running is brilliant. A different sort of outlook to the way you can play the game. So what role they'll have, if any, they may not start, they may not play. So but there are two players I'm excited by. Keith Earls, I'm excited by because he's just delivered so it's not even consistently, it's consistently at a really high level. And when he plays, he at his best, he looks phenomenal. I like watching him. Then you've got Stockdale. I still can't really analyse Stockdale. he just can deliver. You know, he's just a try machine. He scares me the way he defends sometimes, but his attacking game is ridiculous. And if he continues on that, he can maybe start the tournament. So. Yeah. We've got a lot of good players. Tadhg Furlong, this is his World Cup now. Yeah. This is one he should be delivering on, and he can deliver on. And we talk about the importance of an interplay between forwards and backs. There's a key individual for you. So, yeah, like we've got some really, really good players, and if they play at their best, and we have the right, support around them and tactics, then we'll go all right.
You're actually getting me a bit excited now. And we're here today, as I said, at Energy Park. And what is it we're here to kind of promote, or you're lending your support to?
I'm here with Energy today as an ambassador for them and their Power of Positive Energy campaign, which is connecting grassroots rugby all the way up to the national side, and harnessing the supporters' energy and to impact the national team. So myself and Ronan have played in a few days where the crowd have been integral, and their support and energy have been really important. And that's the message we want to get across today, that support or energy is really important as we move to the World Cup.
Perfect. Well, listen, I know you have bits and pieces that you're going to be doing during the World Cup and stuff, so enjoy it. Enjoy it as a fan, I suppose, and take it all in. It's going to be great, isn't it?
Thanks a million.
Okay, cheers, Shane.
Cheers.